Welcome everyone, KD here with another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial about the material editor. This time I want to show you something more specific than in the other parts, and I hope you can use it or get an idea from this how you can do a transparent see-through material with an opacity mask on it. This is a problem I had already a long time ago, and for a long time I didn't know how to solve it. Is really to have a transparent material and a 2D cut with an opacity mask on it, and I finally managed to solve it, and I thought I would give you this idea. So when we go closer to him and we look at the saliva is exactly that. It's actually a disc in the mouth, so the whole mouth is an object inside. And what I just did is with opacity mask cut off this side, and when we go a little bit closer you may see, hopefully still with the animation, that this is actually a see-through material. I added some gloss to it so it looks more liquid-like. That's why I'm showing you this. So let's go into the material editor and I will explain you how I did this. Okay, I'm here in a default map, and we see here I added a cube where on which I will demonstrate the material. So the first thing we have to do is we need 3 new objects. One, a material. Just call this tutorial right now. Then I add under here materials and textures a material function. I rename this as tutorial base. And I will create a second duplicate of that, and I call this tutorial top. So when I go in our material, I can show you what the problem is, why we can't do just in one without layers. We can't do material that is see-through and has an opacity mask on it. If this tutorial is too fast to you or is lacking some information, I will go a little bit fast through it. Please, in the description there I linked you to the other parts of the material edit tutorial I created. If you're really a beginner or inexperienced with the material editor, go watch part 1, 2 and 3. I know they are a little bit long tutorials, but you will get a lot of information from there, more than you need for this tutorial here to understand, but just so you know, because I don't want to explain everything in detail right now. So the problem is when we go here into the material blend mode, we have to choose between opaque, mask or translucent. And if we want to add opacity mask on something, then we need to change the material to masked, so we can select an opacity mask. If we want something to be transparent, we have to select translucent, so we can change the opacity of the material. And that's kind of the problem here. We can do one or the other in one material editor, and right now we want to do both. Well, there is a solution for that, and the answer is with layered materials. So the method I use is maybe not the only one for achieving what I'm doing here. So maybe you can leave in the comments if you think you have a better solution for that. This is just the way I found out it worked. So I will go to the tutorial base layer. So here we have a material function, and the material function you can't directly set on on an object you have in your game. You will call this function through the material editor here. So we have an output result. I will here select the make material attribute editor, not editor, command function, where we call it. And here we see we have all the options we can, all the outputs we can select. And we see here, this is a little bit special, we can select everything instead of here where we are very limited, or not very limited, but limited in the decision which blend mode we use. Here we can select everything, and the thing I want to do here is actually two things. Giving it no, actually this one here doesn't need a vertex vector parameter, any color or anything like that. So the thing with opacity is when your opacity have 0, it is completely invisible, the object. And that's kind of the thing we use now, that we do. We say one layer is invisible and the other layer is slightly visible, so see-through. So 0 is invisible and 1 is completely visible for opacity, and that's the default value is 1. So I put a constant in it, and I put this on into opacity. So constant with 0, and put this in opacity. And I will save this function. So I will take our top layer. I do same thing, getting a make material attribute. Put this into output, and here we want to have a vector parameter because yeah, with black it's not very good. Let's do red, that's fine. And then we again to take a constant into opacity, and here we don't choose 0, we choose something between 0 and 1, the thing you want to use depending on the material you want to use. If you want to have something that is very see-through, you choose a lower number. If you want it to only have to be slightly see-through, you choose a higher number. So there is a other function here, the refraction function. So if you have I don't know, depending on the material you have, so mostly transparent materials, they have they break the light in reality. So when you look through them, they kind of the light breaks differently, and you see a little bit different through it. That's how a lens works, how glasses work, and so on. That's why you see better with glasses when you have a problem with your eyes. If you can't see too far or something like that, then with glasses correct this thanks to the breaking of the light. And if you want to add something like that, then you have to do this here on the refraction. Maybe I can demonstrate. I explained this a little bit more in the first part of the tutorial, so I don't want to go too far into it. But let's just add something in here. Here it is 1, there is no refraction, 0, there is a lot, there's the maximum amount of refraction. And you just have to find out which number is the best for you. So with these two made, we can go back to the material editor. And so now the important thing, you have to do two things. First, you have to say it is a translucent material. Otherwise, even if you have put opacity in here in the material function, it won't work. You still have to say it is translucent. The second thing you have to do is here select use material attributes. So now you can use these material functions for the output of your material, and we call in these two functions. Material function call is the name of the command you want. Tutorial base, and material function call tutorial top, and then we add material layer blend standard. That's at least one I use. There are other options you can choose, but that's the thing I use mostly because it blends everything that we have that we made in the material functions. We can put this in the output. So the tutorial base is our base material, that's why I called it base, and material top is our top material. And now here is the trick. We can say what is the alpha. So the alpha decides where the top layer is visible and at what point not. You can put in here just a constant. However, you can also use a mask, something like an opacity mask. What is an opacity mask? It's just short recap here. It's a texture map that is just black and white. Black says these parts I don't want visible, and white are parts I want to have visibility on it. So here we choose texture sample, so we can add a mask, and I will choose just a very simple map I made for another tutorial actually, that is black and white. So one side will be white, the other side will be black. It's like you see here, it's half-half, and that's more or less all we have to do. And that's kind of the trick, because now we have actually a translucent material. We set this here, we want translucent. We set the needed parameters into our material layers, and thanks to the function that the material layers needs, you need to tell where is the top visible and where not. We can now kind of make a cutoff. We can use an opacity mask in here, and I will show you the result in a moment. So, and this is the result. We see now one half is completely invisible, and the other part is transparent. So we see it even better here on my cube. We see how one side is see-through and the other side is completely invisible. Of course, you can do more complicated forms like that. That's anyway the idea with the opacity mask, that you can do very complicated cutouts without having to do complicated meshes, because that saves us some resources when we play the game. One thing you have to know is, you see it on the shadow, this is still a cube. This is still a cube, so the invisible part is still there. And you see that the light here, we see the shadow, like I said, so the light still thinks there is an object there. And also, if you don't change the collision of this object, I mean, you can't change the collision of this object, and then you can go through the part that is invisible if you want to. But if you just keep it on default, you can't go through this part here with a character or anything like that. Just a thing I want to tell you. And with that, that's everything I wanted to show you. Like I said, it's a very specific tutorial. I hope it gives you some ideas how you can maybe solve some problems you have. Of course, you can go a lot further with this than I did here. With kind of having a semi-transparent, something like a liquid on another body or anything like that. Things like that. So I know I rushed a little bit through the whole thing because I didn't want to repeat everything I did in the other tutorials. So if you have questions, please leave them in the comments. Also, if you have some requests, what you want, anything else you want to know, I will try to answer your questions. Maybe make a tutorial if it's something interesting that may others also find interesting and things like that, or I will link you to someone that knows better than I do. Yeah, so with that, this is all for this tutorial. I want to ask you to like and subscribe. Instead, I ask you to share the video so others that may find this interesting can find it. Thank you so much for watching.